Welcome to a Pulp Event podcast, brought to you by the Pulp Net, your link to the online world of the pulp magazines for over 25 years. Online at thepulp.net. In this Pulp Event podcast, artists Sara Waller and Mark Wheatley discuss artists who are bringing the flavor of the pulp magazines into the 21st century. The talk was recorded on Saturday, August 6, 2022, at PulpFest 50 in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
So, we're here to talk about bringing pulp art into the 21st century. We're going to do a transition of, Mark and I are going to talk about what it's like bringing art from the old pulp days into new art and new pulp art, both of which are not quite the same thing. So, maybe a little bit of introduction is needed. So I will start with you.
Okay. Oh.
Tell me about yourself, Mark.
I thought you were going to introduce yourself.
I will, but I'll let you go first.
I'm Mark Wheatley. Probably have run into me over the years. I've been coming to these things for a long time. I started out as a art director in advertising and pretty mundane stuff. Went into illustrating comic books and books, working in New York City. Started a studio. We produced for comics for many years, still do. I invented color production technology that was used by the industry for many years. I've done art, writing, editing, publishing. I've hosted a radio show and won some awards, and I really like the pulps. I think it's the wellspring for most of what goes on in our modern culture. So.
And I'm Sara Waller. I'm a writer-illustrator. I started actually in nonfiction publishing back in the day. And then I started doing illustration for magazines and books, and I've been doing that for a couple of decades. And I've come to the pulps relatively recently, considering everybody here, so maybe 10 years. But I started reading Henry Kuttner, and I just couldn't go back. And then I started looking at the pulp art, and I realized it really could still speak to us today, even though perhaps some of the topics were not really relevant. But I wanted to learn it, and so that's what I've been doing recently. And I, put out illustrated novelettes because that's fun. So that's us. And so what kind of art inspires you from the pulp era?
One of my earliest influences in pulp was Edgar Rice Burroughs, and therefore J. Allen St. John became the god artist for me. And this has been a particularly wonderful convention because there's so much of his original artwork in the dealer's room. I searched out a lot of pulps for authors I wanted to read, but also J. Allen St. John covers and illustrations. That probably occupied the first decade of my pulp collecting, tracking that sort of stuff down. And after that, I was really always influenced by Howard Pyle and the Brandywine illustrators. And so many of the early pulp artists came from his school. If they didn't come from the school, they were second generation from the school. Almost everything traces back to Howard Pyle in this country for illustration.
So I'm very influenced by Heath Robinson. I consider his line work to be just pristine. Yeah. And also I like H.J. Ford's work from the Colored Fairy books. Mm-hmm. That man worked fast. Mm-hmm. So you can tell by the line work, in order to make those marks, he had to work fast. So yes, I appreciate Pyle as well. Mm-hmm. His books are great.
Well, Robinson kind of gave birth to a whole bunch of great artists too.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yes, and it was related to some of the other ones.
Yes.
Yeah. And I've heard it said, what do you think of this? I've heard it said that you can trace the comics through these Golden Age children's book illustrators coming out of that line work. Do you agree?
I think, and you've probably experienced this, as a commercial artist, I've become the artist that I had commercial opportunities to become.
Right, and you think they did too.
Yes. So if on Wednesday they were offered a chance to do a comic strip, and they did it, and on Thursday they were offered a chance to do a children's book, they would do it. So
you sound exactly like what I learned in the 80s from illustration school. That is exactly the advice that I got, yeah.
And when we say pulp artists, people were working, N.C. Wyeth started out working for the Saturday Evening Post, but he went on to do Pulps after that. And I think we've become pretty rigid in our thinking about this, but that line was crossed back and forth. It just meant you got paid more for one or had more time for another or something.
Or something was color or something was ink.
Right.
Like Virgil Finley going back and forth with the comics.
Oh, well, he was on staff for Hearst newspapers for many, many years, just as a staff illustrator. So, yeah.
That's absolutely true. Yeah. It's funny, you do think about it kind of rigidly. You look at the pulp covers and you say, this person, like Rafael de Soto, I don't know what else he did, but there he was doing all those wonderful paintings. And I'm sure he had other gigs, because that wouldn't have supported him.
I think one of the things that I know that I'm big influence from N.C. Wyeth, and at the Brandywine Museum in the last decade, they've been X-raying a number of his paintings.
Oh, yeah?
And discovering the missing paintings that have been published that they could never find the originals for.
He painted over them.
And generally, they were for the lesser paying jobs. So there's one of the famous Tarzan covers, the Return of Tarzan cover, the second pulp cover that he did, that has never been found. And they believe it's probably under another one of his paintings because he didn't have to buy a new canvas. He just gessoed over it and painted it again, which was a very standard process for anybody working on the pulps.
And it was a standard process for any painter. My dad, he grew up in the Depression, so he was that era. And when he got older and had canvases, he painted over them all the time. He didn't even think about buying new canvases. It was such an ingrained habit from the old days. Yeah. So.
Yeah. So.
I don't know. Do we do that still?
Do we?
Well, digital, I guess you don't have to worry about it.
I don't know. For me, I'm pretty OCD about making sure I keep everything as much as I can. We ran a studio for years, and one of the earliest challenges for reproduction before digital came along was keeping reproducible materials for books. So you would send out something to the printer, the book would be published, and 5 years later the publisher would come back and say, we want to do a new printing of this, and we didn't keep anything. Did you? And we did, but most artists wouldn't. And so I've gotten kind of a habit of making sure I document everything. And with digital, I've got it backed up, and I've got hard copies.
I'm the same, actually. My first book, the art was lost by a publisher.
Yeah.
And that was not weird. That happened.
Things happen.
Things happen. You just have to be really flexible about it.
Yeah, that's the cleaned up version of the slogan.
Yeah. Yes, that's absolutely true, and you run into it. Yeah. So, what were your, as you transitioned and went in as a new pulp artist, as you were moving into this, what were some of your goals? Were you trying to keep to the original feeling?
Absolutely. Unless somebody's told me they wanted to modernize something, I feel like the stories were written in a particular time. So if I'm illustrating for Burroughs, or if I'm illustrating Talbot Mundy or somebody like that, I look to the history of the moment when that was written. I try to do a lot of research for what was being illustrated, the style of illustration at the time, but most importantly, when I actually go to draw the finished piece, I'd like to study as much film footage as I can find from the period, because people have an entirely different body language from the teens and the 20s than we do now, because we're very conscious of film and we tend to present ourselves when we have a camera directed at us. Where back then people didn't understand that their souls were being stolen, and they would just be very natural. And
but builds are different too. Hairstyles are different. Body.
Oh, absolutely.
The way you carry your body is different.
Yeah.
All of this is. I find that as well. I look at a lot of old movies and old stills and haircuts. My goodness, getting the haircut right, you have to.
And a lot of people have a hard time drawing hats now because people don't wear them much.
I know.
And they just don't know how to sit it on a head. So,
which is nice if you have a vintage hat collection, or you know other people who do.
Yes. I'm guessing you have a vintage hat collection.
I do, and I know a fellow who collects fedoras and buys new ones and is very stylish about it. So if a worst case scenario, I could call him up for a model.
Yep.
But it's hard to get models today. Do you use live models?
It's too hard. When I had the studio, it was easy because I could go to the studio next door and I could say, "Here, hold this gun."
And that's what you do. Back in the day, they did hire models when got their friends in there to make funny faces. All those Western magazines that you see the covers and they're just their friend from next door.
Yeah, I do know that the solution now though is this.
Yes.
I need a gun.
I'm actually on the cover of my new book. There's a woman in a headcloth way in the back. That's me in the bathroom mirror going. So yeah. But then you transitioned into obviously an artist's work grows, and so you went from that. Are you still trying to be as literal today?
I think I've become a very pulp influenced artist. The more opportunities I've had to do pulp illustration work, the more my style has coalesced around that.
It makes sense.
And so I have a certain line art style that people really pick up on that is influenced by people like Joseph Clement Call and Dan Smith and J. Allen St. John and a lot of the line artists. And I use that as a basis for a lot of my pulp paintings as well because people seem to like it and it's an easy way for me to work. Recently, though, I've started work on some projects that are definitely not pulp, and I've had to really stretch my wings a little bit to get, loosen up and go back to some other things. But we're shaped by both the things we do and the things we try to express. So
right. I mean, I come from a real. I was doing a lot of portraiture on people and animals for years, and really photorealistic stuff because that's what people really like. And so I had to really loosen up when I started doing pulp paintings. I'm still working on it, those broad strokes that you expect to see because they worked fast, and it's hard to go backwards and say, I need a brush stroke that's this big that shows a shadow or a highlight or something.
But that is a fairly typical approach. I mean, if you look at a pulp painting, and certainly the way they painted, and it all tends to come from folks like Harvey Dunn and Dean Cornwall and all those guys
who were super.
They would do one stroke. It wasn't like searching for that stroke. It was like, all right, and I've seen a film of Harvey Dunn working where he mixed a certain amount of paint on his brush and spent a lot of time on the palette, and then he went up to the painting, stood in front of it. Bop. And then he started mixing paint for the next thing. And all he did was that one, it wasn't a search to find that. It was just that, and he made it with the right kind of brush. He got a wedge image, a wedge shape that, I mean, it was,
Who said that they weren't doing fine art? I mean, that's really
Oh, no, there's
fine.
really no difference. It's just how much you got paid for the work.
That's right. That's right. That's right. So, yeah, I mean, and they had such short deadlines. I think that we have better deadlines today.
Really?
Do you think?
No, I don't think so.
Really? I don't know how long they gave them for those covers.
Pulp was you worked as fast as you could because you needed the money because
That's
the
what I
rates were
thought.
low.
Right.
But still, I bet they had more time than we do today.
You think?
Because I have to turn out, to make it even begin to pay, I have to turn out a cover painting inside 3 days. And that's from research to finish.
Wow.
And if I don't do that, it's because I've decided I want it to look better than how much they're paying me.
I didn't know that you had to work that fast,
Yeah.
honestly.
But, somebody like Wyeth, he'd have a month easily, and a budget that would have allowed him maybe to travel to the location he wanted to include.
Rockwell might have had more time too.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
oh, absolutely. They had the ability to do multiple roughs and present them to a client. My clients today can't afford roughs.
Right.
So,
So how does the speed, knowing that the client is going to want quality, and yet given these incredibly short deadlines, how do you cope with that?
Use every crutch in the book. I mean, you take photographs where you can for reference. I have a personal file of reference photographs. There's probably tens of thousands of photos, and it really helps that I'm working in subject matter that I've already done before. So
Right.
I have that material. I have a collection of guns, either real ones or plastic ones that resemble the ones that are needed, swords, helmets. I've got Gray Morrow's hat collection. I inherited that from Gray. So, yeah, I mean, you just use what you've got, anything to get through, and you've got to be able to draw. I mean, I sketch all the time. And,
So you transitioned for your color work, you're doing all digital now. After the sketches.
Yeah, I mean, if I need a certain texture, I'll go over and I'll smear some paint on the sheet and scan it, and then I'll use that texture in what I'm doing. But most of the painting work is actually done digitally, yes.
Yeah. I work more by hand, and I do some digital, but not very much. So that's kind of different. And it takes longer, quite honestly. Although I will do some pen and ink work online, on digital.
Well, and all my pen and ink work and brush work is still done on paper with real ink.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Well,
I do music recording as well. And I learned early on with the advent of electronic music that if you could include a single real instrument in the mix, the sonics would broaden all of the fake sounds enough that the ear could be fooled into thinking that you were hearing real orchestrations. And I kind of use the same philosophy with digital art. As long as you can create some sort of real element, the line artwork or something, it tends to elevate it to a level of believability that it's got more detail and texture and stuff.
I've seen some of your drawing or paintings that had, I think they had some. You had a show at PulpFest a few years ago.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
And some of those pieces, didn't they have non-digital elements to them?
They did. Yeah, what you were seeing was the line art, and then you were seeing the printout of the digital piece.
Yeah, very nice. I mean, really.
That was Swords Against the Moon Men I illustrated for the Burroughs Company that Christopher Paul Carey wrote. And it was pretty much his audition to become the head of that company.
Right, that's right. I remember that. I do. So let's talk a little bit about the surprises of the industry today, things that get in our way and that shouldn't, but do, like the paper issues and issues and things.
Well, I mean, art supplies are really hard to get. Consistent. It's difficult. If you do like to work in pen and ink, I have to get my ink from Japan because the ink over here is actually acrylic paint that's been watered down and it's not really India ink. Brushes I get from Japan because Winsor Newton brush is the best thing in the world, but I don't like to dip a brush, so I get, so it's art supplies. Paper quality, any artist working on a sheet of paper these days will tell you that this batch was great, and then the next one that's the same brand, everything blotches and spreads. But what I did find is that because they cost so much money, color digital printers require a very rigid standard for their papers. And so I've been buying reams of 100-pound paper that are used in digital printing machines, and you can get that for 3 cents a piece, and instead of $10 a sheet, and the quality never wavers. It's always very good.
Well, I found that actually with getting some things I didn't want to get some color copies made for some art purposes, And I thought, well, I have to. I'm on a tight deadline. But the quality was really good.
Oh, it's really
I was
good.
very surprised.
Yeah.
I ran into an issue with getting paint. I was shocked. There was a color, I don't remember which one it was, but there was a color of acrylic that they couldn't get in. I was shocked. I've never run into that in my life. But it seems like this is going to be an issue going forward.
Yes.
So this is a big problem. And
Also, and I need to warn you, if I like a pen, they'll stop making it.
well, I understand that. I do. Yeah. I think that's when I came up with the palette that I've started using for painting, like 1930s pulp style.
Mm-hmm.
There were a couple of colors in there that got a little iffy. I was like, no, you can't do that to me. You cannot. I refuse to accept that reality. Yeah. But
now, do you do your own scanning when you do a piece?
I do. I do. I used to work in a photography lab too, so I'll do big flat photographs and correct them. Now we don't have to do hand retouching, which is lovely, on negatives and on prints. Boy, it's much easier with Photoshop.
Yes.
So I'll do all of that, and then and I keep a lot of copies too in a lot of different places. And then just punch them up with the black and white or the color a little bit to try to, because sometimes it won't reproduce, as you know, it won't reproduce right if you got it in the wrong register, if it's RGB and it's not, it's GBSCYMK.
Oh, absolutely. And printers are all over the map these days, whether they want CMYK or RGB.
I know.
Yeah.
I just automatically would send them CMYK and they'd say, no, I want RGB.
Yeah. Right.
Do you guys know what that is?
We just slipped into alien tongue, sorry.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you don't know, CMYK is short letters for color names: cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. And that's a 4-color press that would normally print most things you see. And RGB is how things are projected on a computer screen, television screen, whatever.
Yeah.
And the difference, though, is that RGB is a subtractive projection system. So if you mix all the colors, it's white.
It's white.
But if you mix all the inks, that's an additive and they're black. So you have to understand that it works differently when you're mixing in the two different forms.
And we don't have color separations, physical color separations anymore for printing because it's digital.
Right, and if you're proofing on an uncalibrated monitor, it means nothing.
Right. So we're going through this process pre-press, because it's before we send it in to whoever's going to print it, we have to get it to a certain level, and then we send it to the printer or the editor, or whoever is in that process, and then they have to get it to where it's printable, and they always monkey around with it too. Are you having trouble getting proofs back? Like, are they complaining that they can't?
Well, a proof is just a PDF these days.
Right.
So, I mean, but you bring up an interesting point, because in the original pulp situation, the artist's only responsibility was to deliver that painting.
Right.
And now it's our responsibility to not only deliver the painting, but to make sure it's already correct for the proof. When I send it in...
And high quality. It's got to be as high quality as possible.
I always exceed, because if they say, oh, we only need 300 DPI, you don't have to do any more. Yeah, I mean, I'm working. I mean, okay, so do a cover like this, to do it print size, they only wanted it 300. But the actual piece that I did, oh, well, it's probably from here, maybe, way up over here, and if somebody wanted to do a print for the back of here, it would look just fine, because that's how big it is. Mm-hmm. And the reason I do that is...
That's digitally.
Well, it's pixel dimensions.
Pixel dimensions.
But the thing of it is, though, is that I can't get the subtlety of tonal shift and color shift in something that's done small.
Right.
But also, I guarantee you, 2 years from now, they're going to want it at 500.
Sure.
And if they come back and want to reprint it, I don't want to have to redo it.
And that makes perfect sense, because they will come back, and then you can't go up. As you probably know, with pixels, you have to go down.
Well, there are AI programs that are doing a remarkable job these days.
I've started looking at those for photographs. Yeah.
I can multiply some things up to 6 times larger now, and you can't tell.
That's good to know for the future.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have my things I send to printer at least 600 deep. I mean, I won't do 300 because it'll be a problem later. It just will. So, but yeah, I mean, when I started, we did it all. We took it to press. We did the separations. And we did the photographs. We did the separations. We made sure they register. People don't, you still have printer's marks available when you send something to a printer, but they may or may not need them.
Most of the printers I work with specifically request do not put marks.
Yeah, that's a new thing. That was never.
So marks would be for trimming the
and bleed.
So you have to extend the art beyond the edge when you're printing, so it can be trimmed off and it'll go up to the edge and look fine. And we have to just now provide a certain amount of slop over, and they will decide where they're going to do that. So.
And then sometimes they mess up on the first go.
Sometimes
that happens.
Sometimes they do.
Yeah.
But it's easier to correct these days.
Yes, much easier. Yeah, much easier. I find that color is still an issue, though. And I don't know if you found this. You probably have a better printer than I do, but you have to be really careful. Sometimes they don't want to have a discussion with you when you get the proof back and you don't like the color. You probably have a better printer than I've used, but you haven't had.
I don't know. I just do what I need to do.
Okay.
Sometimes you also have to just resolve that you have to accept what they've done.
Like ebooks, like putting artwork in ebooks, you cannot place it.
Oh, that. Oh, yeah. Well, your layout choices are extremely limited.
Very, very limited.
When the original magazines and Pulps were being printed, layout and design was something
Physical
that could be really intricate and very precise. Ebooks now, I mean, they're more interested in maybe locking an illustration to a certain place in the text, so when it reflows, it'll always stay in a certain position. But if you want it to look good on the page, forget it.
Yeah. I was in a seminar that somebody was saying about ebooks. You just have to give it up. Just give it. Put it basically where you want it, and just don't fuss anymore. If you're going to want to fuss, do it with the print book.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So they've essentially dumped. I mean, this is turning into a little bit of a bitch fest on modern technology, isn't it?
I know, it really is, isn't it? I didn't intend for that. We could change it over.
I think we should probably get back more to the soul of pulp.
Okay. So you were a new pulp artist at one point.
Yes, I was.
And I'm a fairly new pulp artist now, and our audience are people who are very experienced with the traditional forms of pulp. So how have you found the best way to introduce yourself and grow? And I mean, you've been doing this for quite a while.
When I first started, I think I was too young to impress the older members of the crowd, but now I'm one of them.
Oh.
I got older. This is
completely off script, but I'm curious. We all have these fantasies about going back and talking to some of these pulp authors, or buying things at the newsstand that suddenly came out with I have a big shopping bag fantasy. Appropriate money and everything, but
because first you have to go back in time.
Yeah.
And you have to take money that you have to go back only 10 years at a time, because if you go back too far, your money wouldn't be transferable.
Right.
I've thought this through.
This is great. Yeah. But so if you were in if you went to one of the studios that had a bunch of the pulp artists working together, what would you ask them? Or would you ask them anything?
Oh, I would just want to sit and watch.
That's what I would do.
I mean, when I had my studio, that's what I did with all the guys who worked with us, is I would love to watch them, and I've learned so much from them. Every artist knows something I don't, and I want to learn it.
Yeah, I would do the same. I think I would ask them, I would look very closely at their palettes, though, because to get the painting right, you really have to, you can't just go off half-cocked and start doing a palette that they never used. And it changed over time. But, that's kind of a thing for
I've
me.
always thought that tones are more important than color. If you get the tones right, the colors will take care of themselves. Color sense is one of those things. I had so many artists that I've trained over the years in my studio. I could train them to draw. I could train them to draw better. I could train composition, all those things. One thing I could never train, if you don't have an innate sense of color, I just could not communicate.
So you would make sure that they understood the value scales really
right,
strongly.
Exactly. Yes.
And then,
yeah.
see, I think that I like working with limited palettes because if you get too confusing, you've got a whole too much.
Right.
It's too much.
Yeah.
They didn't use. Well, unless you were a pastel artist like Modest Stein, and then you would have a lot of different colors to create something. So, so here you are, and you've gotten to be one of the old guys.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah. Sorry. How's it different?
Well, I know everybody, I don't know. I come to these things and it's just a room full of my friends. But I guess the major difference is that I remember my first PulpCon where I brought out my first spider graphic novel, which was part of Titanic Tales. And I got a lot of attention at my booth, my table, because people would see Titanic Tales sitting on the table. And we had put our due diligence in, and that book looked like a pulp. And it was a stack of them sitting on the table, and everybody circling around and around looking for the pulps they needed, saw it, and they would come over and they'd grab it, and they'd go, oh, it's new. And they'd put it back, and they'd keep circling. So we'd done the job of getting their attention and making it look right. But the one thing you can't solve is that the people weren't looking for something new. They were looking for the old pulps. Well, now the pulps have become so hard to find, and they're expensive, that I think we finally have a good market for all of the publishers who are bringing out new pulp. And I think that's a nice change. That I think that's the most hope we have for taking the aesthetics of pulp, the culture of pulp into the future. You know, is that you have to have that vitality of new creation, or it just dies. So.
And I think that we're also, in a way, setting the standard for the future. I mean, the fact that now digital art is available, so going forward, digital art with new pulp, digital art becomes canon in a way that it wasn't. And who knows what the next step will be? Holographic? I mean, who knows?
Whatever is easy. That's pulp,
yeah,
right?
That's right. That's pulp. That's the answer for that.
Yeah. The holograms will be for the slicks and the.
That would be. Are we still crossing? Well, of course we are. We're still crossing over. Your crossover between pulps and all sorts
Oh, sure.
of other things.
I think the mainstream culture today is pulp.
Yeah, I suppose that's true.
I think the personality of pulp is a very direct marketing thing. That's an unashamed, built-in marketing sense. If you look at the early pulps, and I think this is seen everywhere we are today, it would be, here's your story, read it, and by the way, next issue, come and buy it. I mean, everything is about selling the next piece today. Everything, everywhere.
Here's a question. I've not thought about this because it's never come up for me, ever. In the pulp days, they would often have the art first, and then tell the writers
Still
to write.
happens. Still
Does
happens.
it? Because
all the
I've
time.
never run into that.
Yeah, it still happens. Well, it depends. If I walk in with a piece of art that I've generated myself and somebody sees it and goes, oh my God, this is great, I got to use this. Well, the art sells the book. I mean,
right.
It also helps if you've got a name of an author somebody really likes on the book. But if you've got a piece of art that is appealing, then you've already got the hardest part out of the way.
Right.
And then it's up to somebody to write a story. Now, it would be really good if they write an incredible story.
Right.
But sales are already made before you find that out.
Right.
So.
Now, I know there were trends in fantasy recently, and probably continuing, where, at the moment, there's a trend, you need to have a dragon on the cover, or it needs to be yellow, or it needs to have a house.
Right.
Or I've not run into that in pulp, have you?
Well,
I mean, there's genre stuff. You're going to have a detective cover that looks like
I probably self-limit because if a publisher comes to me and says I'm doing a science fiction cover and it's well, I mean, I've done this, like for Meteor House, they were extending a Philip Jose Farmer series, and so I thought I had to do something evocative of the previous books. Yeah, I mean, we just did this thing for Flinch, which is very well received, Flashing Swords, and it's a sword and sorcery cover, and there are just some things that had to be on the cover. It has to be a guy, you know, who's a barbarian-esque sort of warrior with a sword. Absolutely. Now, if we were doing a true pulp cover, there would be some damsel in distress, but modern sensibilities say, no, we're not going there.
Well, and this is really a good place to go from here, because they had constraints in the pulp era that we don't have, and we have constraints, a lot of constraints that they didn't have. So we have to do a lot of censoring about what could be on the cover.
Well, you have to find new avenues.
Right. It's still storytelling.
Yeah.
You know, but
and in some ways, it just keeps us from being repetitious.
Well, that's true. Except pulp stuff is repetitious.
Well, there's not that much of it being produced these days, so
Well,
I think we can avoid it easier than
That's
they used
true.
to.
That's true.
If it was true pulp, they would take my painting and just reverse it and print it on another title.
That's right. That's right. Well, and then there's the copies that another publisher might do.
Oh yeah, sure.
In fact, didn't we see one of those last night? Someone was showing us. Oh, it was the comics. It was taking two comics had the same art. It's just one had been changed from dogfighting to flying saucers. Same art, and I guess we're still seeing that.
Well, when we did Johnny Quest for I don't know, 2 or 3 years, whatever it was, we had an unusual contract in that we owned the rights to reproduce the artwork.
That's fantastic.
But we didn't own the rights to the trademark characters.
So you could do the backgrounds?
So
the
Dr.
planes?
Quest became Dr. Cyborg, and he got a beard, right? And Johnny became a little black-haired guy rather than a blonde-haired guy.
And Haji?
Haji became a Native American girl.
Oh, wow. Okay.
All very easy fixes, by the way, because we didn't have to redraw any figures, just black in Johnny's hair and take the turban off
Take the turban
and
off
put
Haji,
and put like, you know, braided black hair on her. So yeah. So I mean, it's a something. It's the economics, and pulp has always been very economically driven.
Yeah.
And so,
how to do it cheapest and fastest.
Yeah.
I know that they reused a lot of the art in the pulp era, and I'm sure. You probably just you don't have a lot of art in reserve that didn't get bought or that you keep and maybe would sell later.
My dirty little secret is I do this stuff even when I'm not getting paid. So yeah, I have a lot of stuff that I just keep doing.
Yeah, I think we all do.
Yeah.
Stuff that just didn't quite make the cut, and then but you might be able to reuse it.
Well, it's not that it didn't make the cut. I mean, I did come up with a lot of stuff, and there's just no market for it. There's just no place for it to go.
Yeah.
And I've got a project I'm planning for next summer, which is a revival of my fanzine, which is going to be a repository for a lot of these stories. I mean, I wrote one of my favorite things is called Broken Knife, is a multiple alternate world story. And it was done for an online site that was one of the major science fiction publishers, and they were putting new fiction online as a way to get people to come to their online store. And about the time, of course, mine was gone, and they decided to stop doing that. So now I've got this thing that was written specifically to certain lengths for a certain thing. And it must be time for happy hour.
The slides are ready.
Yeah. Anyway, So I've lost my train of thought.
Well, you produced this multiple word story.
Oh yeah. So
and now you've nowhere to put it.
So I've got so many things I've done like this over the years I've been working that have just been waiting to find a home. And so I consider them some of my very best work, and they've just been sitting there, little gems waiting to find a home. And so I'm going to be pulling them all together and using them in my fanzine, which really isn't a fanzine anymore, but because I'm not a fan. Well, I am a fan.
You are a fan.
But I'm a professional fan.
That's right.
Point, so, yeah.
And now it's we have a lot more opportunities to reach people today. I mean, there's all the online things, but there's also Kickstarters. And many artists have found this to be a very successful way to market new works. And what's been your experience with Kickstarters?
Well, one of my old assistants put it really well. He said, okay, so let me get this straight. Now I not only have to write and draw and figure out how to publish and distribute, but I also have to become a 24-hour-a-day marketer on social media and an accomplished video presenter, and then I can actually sell my book, and that's what we do. But it works, and it's an opportunity, and so yeah, I mean, I've had I think 4 successful Kickstarters at this point. The really great thing is if you're really good with your people who support you on Kickstarter, they come back and support you again and again, and your base grows each time. They just need the confidence that you actually deliver, because unfortunately, as you've probably, if you've ever worked with Kickstarter, you'll find eventually somebody won't deliver. I've done. I did this. Oh, well, okay. I did the Songs of Giants book, which was a collection of poetry from the Pulps that I got to illustrate with, lots of really elaborate illustrations, and it was very successful. I was really blown away by how well that did. And I just did the Edgar Rice Burroughs Visions of Adventure portfolio, which, because of the support I've had over the years, my backers made this hit its goal in the first 6 hours of a month-long campaign.
That's fantastic.
Because I didn't want to delay delivery, I had already sent the folder out for die cut and print. So I was committed to the folder. And so when we had so many stretch goals and we hit 16 prints, I had to start getting clever for more stretch goals because the thing physically would not hold more than 16. I was originally planning only 8 prints. But I mean, it's really cool because, like with this book, I was able to offer a audio book version along with it that is just almost better than the book. The Redfield Arts Company that's set up in the room do amazing work, and the readings of these poems will send shivers up your spine. I guarantee it. And that comes with the book. Little extras, I did all sorts of little extras on this that I could never do if I was working for a commercial publisher. The fact that it's a die-cut folder, for one. Nobody would have gone for that. They'd have found the cheaper way. They would have put it in an envelope and just, say, yeah, here's the stuff. I mean, I got to put a metallic print 5th ink on the cover of this.
I was looking at that. That's not cheap.
Yeah, but it's a stretch goal.
Yeah, that's right.
They said, yeah, let's go for that. I was able to put a cloth bookmark in here, a ribbon bookmark. I've never had that in one of my books before. So it's really cool. I really enjoy working with it.
Well, and again, that's something that, as you mentioned, a publisher might not go for some of those things. In the old days, they couldn't have afforded to do it.
Right.
And the audiobook option is a very modern option. And it's, there was radio, but you wouldn't have had a pulp package with a radio anything.
Well, it just worked. The dynamics worked differently, right?
Did.
I mean, the shadow came out of the radio show.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And, you see it with Flash Gordon, you see it with all sorts of things. Yeah. But we have an opportunity to package it together. Mm-hmm. So that's something that for us in the 21st century is really cool. You can have the digital, you can have the audio, you can have the print stuff if you want it. And I guess it's we have to figure out as artists what the trend at the moment is that's coolest, that the the readers or listeners would want.
I don't try.
You don't try?
No. So here's the story about this. Poetry. Oh, there's a big market, right? Poetry, right? But
Some people would think so.
I really loved, well, okay, so this was like 5 years ago, and I'm sitting there thinking, you know what I'd like to do? I'd like to collect poetry from Robert E. Howard, Edgar Rice Burroughs, and H.P. Lovecraft and illustrate it into a book. Well, I'm going to lose my shirt on that, but I'm going to go ahead and do it. And so I did. I invested 2 years in illustrating the book, putting it together, and I launched the Kickstarter pretty much like the month before I launched the Kickstarter. Poetry started showing up on the New York Times bestseller list as the hottest thing in the market,
That's
right?
Fantastic.
And so I started getting calls from publishers going, could you advise us? You obviously have your finger on the pulse of the publishing industry. And I'm like, yeah, sure.
That's great.
I mean, Kickstarter came to me and said, we love that you're on the vanguard of our new successful publishing of poetry. It's been so successful, and you picked up on it so quickly. Yeah, right.
And you absolutely agreed with everything they said. Yes, it was a great idea.
There have been times in my career where I've done that, but here it was like, I'm not really looking to be a consultant at this point, but yeah.
Well, the consultants pay a lot.
Yeah, but yeah. I know a guy who retired on it. He worked for MCI, and his supervisor upset him so much that he put in for early retirement and cashed out all his stocks. And 1 month later, 90 days later, MCI went, pew!
Oh, good timing.
For the next 15 years, he advised other companies because he got pegged as the one guy who could see it coming. And the only reason he left was because his supervisor was such an asshole.
Wow.
Yeah, but he made a huge career out of being a consultant because of that. So it's,
Well, you said something to me the other day about, if you're in this long enough, you find yourself in the right place in the road. That's not a direct quote, but it's close.
Yeah, I said if you stand in the road long enough, a truck will hit you. Yes.
Yeah, that's what you said.
Yeah.
But, I mean, is advice for, I don't know if there's any artists in the room, but advice for artists going forward?
You got to stay in the center of the road.
Yeah.
So what that really means is that if you keep going for what you think is hot now, you will never get there because what's hot now won't be there when you get there.
5 minutes.
If you stay in one place and you're completely devoted to what you're doing, you have your best chance of eventually the attention of society landing on your spot at some point. But if you keep moving, you're both going to miss it, and
Well, and also, because you get known for the thing that somebody will eventually need.
Right.
And I have a non-pulp story for that came to me recently. I've done a number of... Are we done?
5 minutes.
Okay. This is really quick. I do a lot of children's book work, and I do coloring books, and I've done a whole bunch of those. And so I was at a meeting where a new coloring book for an event was being considered by a town. And they were looking at another coloring book in another town locally, and they said, we need to get in touch with this person who did this other coloring book. And I just sat there and went, and they said, yeah, we really need to get in touch with this person. I'm like, it was me. Just talk to me. And so part of what I've gotten a reputation for is to doing historical coloring books, because you start doing them, and then suddenly everybody is looking to, who did that one? And I didn't intend to be in that market, but there it is. And it actually is a market.
This is where we started. You're shaped by what opportunities you're given.
Yeah. And I end up with these coloring books are historical local events, and so they get taught in schools as teaching tools, and suddenly, I'm like, well, I'm trying to do something else, but okay.
That means in 20 years, you're going to have a great market.
Yeah, I know.
All those kids are going to be going, I wish he'd do some more stuff.
I know. And you got to take it, because as an illustrator, that's your job. It's come up. Yay, I'm good.
Yeah.
Hire me. Yeah.
And along those lines, I've gotten known for some things that I very actively resisted and got away from.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I can't put my finger on it right now because I put them out of my mind, but I know there have been points where I've said, oh no, everybody's coming to me for this. I don't want to do that anymore.
Yeah, the coloring book thing is that for me.
Yeah.
But I think we should open it up for a few minutes of questions. Does anybody have any questions? Everyone still awake, I hope?
Well, we have a question. Yes, sir.
Hey, Mark. Nice presentation. Really liked it. So if you're a young artist today, you have a digital for painting and you love pulps and you want to continue doing that, where is your market? Who do you talk to? Who's going to publish your stuff?
Well, this room over here is full of new pulp publishers. Meteor House, Flinch, Airship 27. I don't even know personally some of them, but you can just walk around and see them on the tables. There are a lot of good new books being done. It's actually a pretty exciting time for pulp.
I guess I'm coming from the fact that when the original artists were working, there were thousands of magazines.
Yeah, no.
Publishing those, which doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, and the truth is a lot of these publishers are not in a position to really put much of a budget into designing their books. And there are a lot of publishers out there who are doing, I think, very good written material that don't have a good grasp of the visual. Mm-hmm. And an enterprising young artist might be able to sell themselves to those folks if they're able to get on the right wavelength. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. Mm-hmm. So.
And don't forget, this is again a problem for pay, but there's a whole lot of new pulp individuals putting out books. And so if you're an artist and you feel like you want to get in touch with them, they probably don't have much of a budget, but I don't know. I think it's possible that trades could be done. And going forward, there's always that possibility somebody has a way to trade with you to get started in the field. It's not great, but it's feasible.
And if you're trying to do covers in the pulp industry, you need to understand this is going to be some fragment of your total design for your career, because there's not enough here to make a living. I make my money from TV and motion pictures these days, mostly, not in publishing at all. So.
Yeah, and I'm an editor part-time too, so. Any other questions? Well, thank you all for coming. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
You've been listening to a Pulp Event podcast, brought to you by the PulpNet, your link to the online world of the pulp magazines for over 25 years. Please visit us online at thepulp.net. Also, look for the PulpNet on Facebook and on Twitter. Thank you for listening, and keep reading the Pulps. This Pulp Event podcast is copyright 2022 by William P. Lampkin, all rights reserved.